All right. So in the last section, we're just going to talk about motor control and fundamental types of movement. So on page 255 in the book, figure 1119, which is in this slide, but it's kind of too small to read when you have it on the screen. So open up your book and take a look at it. It's a sort of a simplified diagram of the major influences on muscle activity. So we have influences in the peripheral region from the motor neurons and proprioception that affects motor output. We have the spinal region integrating information from other spinal cord segments within the spinal cord. And the descending tracts from the brain, those descending motor tracts, the corticospinal and reticulospinal. And the control circuits from the cerebellum and the basal ganglia adjusting the level of activity in those descending tracts. So really we have a lot of input to motor control, and any one of those areas being damaged can cause problems in the whole system. So there are three fundamental types of movement in the human body. Postural, which is controlled by brainstem mechanisms. Ambulatory, controlled by brainstem and spinal region, and reaching and grasping, which is controlled by the cerebral cortex. So all of the regions of the nervous system contribute to each type of movement, but each one of them is controlled by a different area. So postural control provides orientation and balance. So orientation is the adjustment of the body and the head to vertical. Like, are we upside down, or are we right side up, or are we leaning to one side? So you can see if somebody has a stroke or a brain injury or spinal cord injury, it's certainly going to affect their orientation. Balance is the ability to maintain the center of mass relative to the base of support. Remember that? We talked about that the first day in kinesiology. So that postural control is orientation and balance. Postural control is achieved by central commands to the lower motor neurons. So the central output is adjusted to the environmental context by sensory input. So that's that cerebellum compares actual motor output to what it wants to happen, and it makes adjustments given that sensory information. So if we're lacking any one of those little pieces of the puzzle, it can affect our postural control. So to orient to the world, and I talked about this a little bit in the last chapter, there are three sensory systems, three sensory areas of input used. Somatosensation, that provides information about weight bearing and the relative position of body parts. Vision, providing information about movement and cues for judging whether you're upright or not. And vestibular, which informs you about your head position relative to gravity and your head movement. So you need all of those three sensory areas to orient to the world. So they have these pictures in the book to depict neck and vestibular reflexes. And you're going to go over these more in your neuro rehab class next quarter, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on them in this class, but we do have some specific reflexes that affect postural control. So when you have children that have unintegrated neural reflexes, or they're affected in some way, that's going to affect their postural control. And so that's why a lot of these pictures are of children. But you will go over those neck and vestibular reflexes more closely in neuro rehab class. Postureography is used to determine sensory organization and muscle coordination. It's like a surface EMG for specific muscles, and they test for different sensory conditions. So that sometimes you might see some results from that, but that's performed at a neurology clinic. It's not performed in physical therapy. Another area of motor control is ambulation. So all the regions of the nervous system are required for normal human ambulation. Physical therapy obviously is very involved in ambulation. We deal with it a lot. The cerebral cortex provides goal orientation and control of ankle movements. The basal ganglia govern generation of force. So how much force do we need to push off and to land? The cerebellum provides timing, coordination, and error correction, and sensory information is used to adapt motor output appropriately. So we need all those things for ambulation. So you can imagine if any one of those things is affected, it's going to affect our walking. During normal gait initiation, the swing limb first pushes down and then back against the support surface. That's what's propelling us forward. And you guys are learning about this in 113 this quarter. The pattern of force results in the center of mass being moved forward and onto the stance leg in the preparation for the next step. And it increases the magnitude of the subsequent movement. So if you take one step at a time, it's more difficult than getting that smooth ambulation going because you get that forward propulsion as you move forward. Reaching and grasping is the third area of motor control. Vision and somatosensation are essential for reaching and grasping. Vision provides information for locating an object in space and assessing its shape and size. So when I reach out to pick up my coffee cup, am I picking up the big giant cup or the little demitasse cup? I have to assess the size and how much information I'm going to need in order to grab that cup. Feed forward is the primary role of visual information. If the movement is inaccurate, vision guides the correction. So if I reach out and I don't quite catch the cup, my vision is going to correct that for me. So the action stream goes from the visual cortex to the parietal cortex, which is where our motor cortex is. Grasping is coordinated with the activity of the eyes, head, proximal upper limb, and trunk. The orientation and postural preparation are integral to the movement. So I always say if you need proximal stability for distal mobility, you can't grasp something if you're not stable in your trunk. So when the object is contacted with your hand, you adjust your grip force using that feed forward control to grab onto it. After the object is grasped, the somatosensory information corrects any error in grip force. So you might need to do a lighter grip or a stronger grip in order to hold on to it. So you're getting all that feed forward, feedback information to perform those reaching and grasping activities.